Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. We hear from the head of Alberta's health system, who says the hospital crisis in our province has become dire. A former NDP MLA has put her hat back in the ring, seeking the nomination for Lethbridge East. And details of a Christian retreat that offers hope and help to children with disabilities.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A BC court ruled late today that Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou will not be extradited to the United States. This is after Meng reached a deferred prosecution agreement with the U.S. government. The deal with U.S. prosecutors resolved the charges against the Chinese tech executive. U.S. officials say by entering into the deferred prosecution agreement, Meng has taken responsibility for her role in perpetrating a scheme to defraud a global financial institution. BC Supreme Court Associate Justice Heather Holmes officially ended the Canadian proceedings, signing an order to discharge the extradition request and vacate Meng's bail conditions. She's now free to leave Canada. As for the two Michaels, Spavor and Kovrig, they're still being held captive in China since being charged with espionage. Spavor was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Kovrig has yet to be sentenced. The head of our province's health system says the COVID-19 hospital crisis has become quite dire. Dr. Verna Hughes says the main reason why the system has not collapsed is because patients are dying and creating more bed space.
As of early afternoon, there are 310 Albertans in ICU, of which 226 patients have COVID-19. We have never ever had that number of total patients in ICU before, never with the prior waves and never in the history of this province. And each day we see a new high. Yesterday alone we had 22 Albertans who were admitted to our ICUs with COVID. The day before we had 23. And over the past 5 days, the average number of COVID ICU admissions have been more than 23 per day. It's tragic that we are only able to keep pace with these sort of numbers because, in part, some of our ICU patients have passed away. And this reality has a deep and lasting impact on our ICU teams.
Alberta Health Services says it is pausing mental illness and addiction program referrals across the province. It says it needs to reassign staff to help deal with the strain on our healthcare system caused by COVID-19. AHS says some inpatients will be transferred to non-acute spaces. It says a unit that provides recovery support programming for people with stabilized mental illness will help patients through an online program. Former Lethbridge MLA Maria Fitzpatrick has announced her intent to seek the Alberta NDP nomination for Lethbridge East. Fitzpatrick was first elected as the NDP MLA for Lethbridge East in 2015 until she was defeated by the UCP's Nathan Neudorf in 2019. Fitzpatrick says the UCP and Neudorf have not stepped up during the pandemic, which is why she's seeking the NDP nomination to run once again.
Nathan is not speaking up about that. He's not speaking up about what went on with the coal mines and the eastern slopes. Our water is at such risk that Lethbridge could be off the map if it continues. And even though the federal government has come down and has not given them the okay to do it, they are still doing exploratory work on the mountains because they've put in an appeal to the federal government's decision. Nathan is not speaking up. He needs to speak up in his caucus. He needs to speak up here in public to say this is wrong and it shouldn't be happening and to stop it. And he's not doing that.
Although a provincial election hasn't been called in Alberta, it's expected to be held sometime between March and May of 2023. Fitzpatrick will be competing for the nomination along with recent Lethbridge City Councillor Rob Miyashiro. Lauren Hickey is seeking his 8th term as Reeve of Lethbridge County. If he's re-elected by voters, Hickey will still have to be voted in by his fellow councillors to earn the nod of the title of Reeve. Hickey says it's been a challenging time for farmers and ranchers during his last term due to the drought and the pandemic. He says, however, that he has some lofty goals for the county should he be re-elected.
I think there's a few issues on the table, and I think one of them is to work much better with our municipal neighbors like the City of Lethbridge and Town of Picture Butte and Nobleford and Colhurst and Coaldale. We all need to realize that in order to be sustainable, we're going to have to work together and move forward. Otherwise, somebody's going to fail along the way. And we need to make sure that we cooperate with each other and work together as best we can.
The Alberta municipal election will take place on October the 18th. Lethbridge police need our help finding a witness to a collision on Monday. The collision between a motorbike and a sport utility vehicle occurred around 6 p.m. at the intersection of Crow's Nest Trail and 43rd Street. The motorcyclist was airlifted to a hospital in Calgary with serious injuries. Traffic response unit investigators need witnesses to the actual collision. If you have any information that can help police, call them right away at 403-328-4444. Lethbridge Police, and teaming up with Cardston RCMP and Blood Tribe Police, helped to break up a car ring. 6 vehicles that were stolen from various Lethbridge car lots were recovered. The total value was around $250,000. Police located and arrested the 2 suspects Tuesday in a stolen vehicle on Mayor McGrath Drive. 37-year-old Isaiah Atco of Lethbridge and 29-year-old Kirby Mills, also of Lethbridge, face a series of charges including theft of a motor vehicle, break and enter, and trafficking in stolen property. A new partnership between the Sterling Fire Department and Ivertech Heavy Equipment Services will allow the village to save some money. The collaboration will see more savings for their on-road and in-shop services for their fleet of vehicles. CAO with the Village of Sterling, Scott Donsler, says these partnerships allow the fire department to reallocate resources into critical equipment.
So for the fire department, the partnership gives them 100 hours of free labor on the heavy equipment side of things, as well as any of the parts that we utilize, Ivertech's providing them to us at cost plus 10%. And then after we've used up our 100 hours of free labor, we get a reduced labor rate of $85 an hour. So in terms of cost efficiency for a small village of our size and a department of our size, they're doing us a great service by doing that. So we're not having to spend the same volume to repair the fleet that we would have to if we didn't have this agreement in place.
Along with the new partnership, the town will also receive a pumper vehicle from the City of Calgary. The new equipment will allow the fire department to provide more resources when responding to a call. A relay horse race will pay tribute to former Blood Tribe councillor and Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief Jason Goodstriker, who passed away last year. The competitors will ride bareback in a highly contested event, all in the name and honor of Goodstriker.
There are 3 horses in the race, 1 rider, 2 holders, and what they start off with the race, go once around the racetrack, come barreling to a stop, jump off the horse, onto another horse, all bareback, race around again, come to a full stop, jump off, back onto a 3rd horse, and then the winner is declared. Now, there will be 3 races on Saturday with 4 teams in each event, and then there will be a selection of the teams that will go into the finals, which will be the Jason Goodstriker Memorial Relay Race.
The races will take place on September 25th and the 26th, and you'll have to bring proof of vaccination to be allowed inside. The Lethbridge Electronic Music Festival is set to drop some beats this weekend. The last event in 2019 drew close to 5,000 people. Now this year, it'll take place in Galt Gardens. The free event will feature 25 DJs throughout the day. Organizers hoping that people are able to get out and have some fun after the tough year we've had due to the pandemic.
I think it's really needed right now. Personally, for us, we've been working on this party for almost 2 years now after the cancellation last year, and then we've changed the date this year a couple of times, and it seems like pretty much everyone else is canceled at this point. Fresh Fest, Coulee Fest, all that is gone. So I think it's a nice opportunity for people to get back in the park and get outside and maybe get into a festival experience for the first time in a couple of years and dance and see people they haven't seen in a while.
Officials say this is a family-friendly event, and they're encouraging families to get together at Galt Gardens beginning at 11 a.m. on Saturday to enjoy lots of live music. There's some exciting news for moviegoers in southern Alberta. Sony Canada has confirmed the town of Fort Macleod will receive a special screening of Ghostbusters Afterlife on November the 13th. The movie was filmed in Fort Macleod and other areas across southern Alberta last year. The screening will take place at the Empress Theatre. The town's interim CAO, Lisa Gillingham, says people are thrilled to see the town featured in the movie.
It's always wonderful to be able to see your hometown iconic buildings and such show up on screen, and we've had it in the past, but to see it in the trailer kind of getting blown up, that Empress Theatre sign, it was a a big reminder of how prominent Fort Macleod is in those certain scenes. So it is pretty exciting. There is some buzz going around.
Tickets will go on sale October 4th and are $100, and they can be purchased online through the Empress Theatre. Proceeds from ticket sales will go towards new seats and flooring for the Empress Theatre. Ghostbusters Afterlife hits theaters on November the 19th. Canada's premiers say they cannot wait for the pandemic to be over to discuss boosting healthcare funding with the federal government. The members of the Council of the Federation say they want to speak with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about their need for more money. Provinces and territories currently receive 22% of their health funding from Ottawa. They want that number to be raised to 35%. Saskatchewan has suspended its organ donation program due to a lack of resources brought on by the fourth wave of COVID-19. The Saskatchewan Health Authority says that means if residents who are registered donors die, their organs will not be given to those who need them. Saskatchewan broke COVID-19 hospitalization records again on Thursday, with 273 patients in hospital with the virus, along with 58 in intensive care. Healthcare in Saskatchewan is being restructured to redeploy staff and other resources to help with record COVID-19 hospitalizations.
We are currently utilizing the pediatric ICU in Saskatoon for some adult patients. Currently, we have added and staffed an additional 36 adult medicine beds in Saskatoon and 22 beds in Regina. This will assist us in supporting anticipated incoming COVID demand along with service slowdowns across the province. It is important to recognize that with service slowdowns, we will be and are caring for COVID patients in spaces and with staff who would otherwise have been providing other health services. Right now, we have 30 hospitals across the province who are staffed caring for more than 200 acute care, non-ICU COVID patients.
Manitoba Premier Kelvin Goertzen says he and his family have been threatened over his province's new public health orders. Goertzen, who's a member of the legislature for Steinbach, says he continues to support current public health orders, including vaccine mandates and proof of vaccination protocols. He says they help keep COVID-19 in check and ensure that Manitobans receive the health care they need. Goertzen says he does not like the extra measures, but having a proof of vaccination policy is better than having to cancel 15,000 surgeries. Quebec is offering up to $18,000 in bonuses for full-time nurses to stop them from quitting. Premier François Legault says he hopes the incentives will bring back workers following months of pandemic-induced stress that have contributed to a shortage of 4,300 nurses across the province.
Many people thought that we would never sign with them, that we would never sign an agreement. Why? Because they wanted so much that we end the mandatory overtime and that we end the use of private agencies. And they finally, with Sonia, signed the agreement. So unions also thought that it's a good solution for their problem. So I think that we're both in the boat.
Hurricane Ida not only leveled homes across much of Louisiana, but it also knocked out power to thousands of homes. A tent city has been set up in the state, housing more than 1,000 linemen from across the United States working to restore electricity.
This is what we call Tent City. This is where we house all of our linemen that come in from all over to help us. And this is where we park the vehicles, park the equipment, house the guys, feed them, fuel their trucks, store materials. I mean, this is really the center of everything we're doing right now.
The further south you come, the worse it gets. We were just awestruck, you know, just the amount of devastation and the people's homes that are lost. We feel for them.
We've been in the swamp for a little over a week, I guess, picking up these poles. Some of them been broke. It's just been a fight in this marsh trying to get this equipment up and down through here. You're already working hard before you even get out here to the equipment to go to work.
It's a good feeling when you have an army that size coming to your aid. It shows you that you're not alone. My personal home fared extremely well. Some of my guys, not so lucky. It's just hard. But they're all here. They're working.
Wow, that's incredible. The inequality of COVID-19 distribution is coming into focus as many leaders of African nations stepped up to the podium at the United Nations saying how they have little access to the vaccine.
It is an indictment on humanity that more than 82% of the world's vaccine doses have been acquired by wealthy countries, while less than 1% has gone to low-income countries.
It is a pity that we have a situation where in some countries, citizens are at the stage of receiving booster shots, while in other countries, many are still waiting to receive their first doses.
Millions of people around the world live with a disability, including so many children. Joni and Friends Family Retreat program makes a way for families living with disabilities to have a time of rest and connect with other families who understand the demands, struggles, and victories. In this next story, we see how this unique Christian program impacted the Cooper family.
Every way we turn, there's always somebody representing Jesus and reminding us that he loves us and that we're all created special. My name is Angel Cooper from Pelahatchie. This is my 13-year-old daughter, Ainsley. This is her sister, Arlie. She's 6. Family retreat is unique for us. We know that Arlie's going to be able to do anything here that other kids are doing.
I got to meet new people, and I got to hula hoop and got to swim in the pool, which I love doing. I love doing craft. I dance with Caroline, and I just have fun with other people.
She's going to be with kids like her. She's not going to be wishing that one day she could walk so she could do the stuff that everybody else is doing. Someone makes a way while we're here for her to be able to do everything and to feel included. When we come here, we have assistants to spend time with her so that I can rest. I enjoy coming and meeting new people, other parents who can tell me about other resources to help me with Arlie. I've made friends with several families and have also met people that live less than 10 miles from me that become new friends and like family that otherwise I would have never gotten a chance to meet them.
It's definitely easier for me to connect with other people at family retreat. People here understand what it's like to go through things with siblings and other people that have disabilities on a day-to-day basis.
Family retreat is like our safe place. We feel welcomed. I feel like anything I need I can ask, and everyone around will do whatever they can to get us anything we need and make sure we're happy and that we feel loved and accepted.
When you leave, it's just sad to see the place go, and you just can't wait till you come again next time.
It's just an awesome place to be with our family.
What a wonderful idea. Well, it was another dry day in the Windy City with not much rain, and the warm and dry conditions will continue into the weekend. Full weather details are coming up. We have seen some pretty nice weather here in Lethbridge over the past week, and the above seasonal values will continue into the weekend. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a complete look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, last year we referred to September as snow-tember, but this year it's feeling more like summer-tember.
Yeah, certainly feels like it because those temperatures are going to soar this weekend. We are looking at a high of 27 degrees for tomorrow, Saturday, mix of sun and cloud. And then Sunday, we're almost at 30. Might as well be 30, but it's 29, mix of sun and cloud as well. A little bit of wind tomorrow too, I need to mention, up to 30 kilometers per hour. Into Monday, mix of sun and cloud, 27 the high, 22 on Tuesday, down to 20 on Wednesday, still not bad, 25 on Thursday. So we are just well up into the high 20s for going forward from here, well above the average high for this time of year, which is 19 degrees. 4 degrees is the average low. 36 was our temperature back in 2001, and in 1972 we had our chilliest, which was -6. 7:21 is when the sun rose this morning, and 7:26 is when the sun will be setting this evening, giving us very close to 12 hours of daylight. Over on the west coast for tomorrow, looking at sunshine. Victoria, 18 degrees, 20 degrees in Vancouver. In Edmonton, we're looking at a high of 22 with a mix of sun and clouds, starting out sunny and then developing cloud throughout the day. Calgary, same thing, high of 25 degrees, looking at winds of 20 to 40 kilometers per hour in Calgary. Now in Saskatoon, a beautiful day, 25 in sunshine, 26 in sunshine in Regina, and Winnipeg sitting at 22 degrees with lots of sunny skies as well. So it's just going to be a beautiful day tomorrow across the prairies. Lovely, lovely weekend ahead of us. Toronto, chance of showers, 19 is the high there, 21 in Ottawa with mainly sunny skies. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow in Montreal with a high of 21 degrees. As we look further east into Atlantic Canada, let's take a look at those Maritimes. Over in Fredericton, seeing a risk of an afternoon thunder shower. Chance of rain as well, up to 5 millimeters. 20 the high also in Halifax with chance of rain. 22 in Charlottetown and 12 degrees in St. John's, Newfoundland with mainly sunny skies. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Costco Wholesale Corp reported a fiscal fourth quarter net income of $1.67 billion. The warehouse club operator posted revenue of $62.68 billion for the period, which fell short of Wall Street's expectations. Analysts were expecting closer to $63 billion. For the year, the company recorded a profit of just over $5 billion. Costco shares climbed 20% since the beginning of the year, while the S&P's index increased 18%. In recent trading, Costco shares hit $452.78, which is an increase of 31% over the past year. BlackBerry Limited says its net loss surged to $144 million US in its last quarter as revenue fell 32%. The Waterloo-based Ontario company says it lost 25 cents per share in the 3 months ending August the 31st. Now that compares with a loss of 4 cents per share or $23 million a year earlier. Excluding one-time items, it swung into an adjusted loss of $33 million. That compares with an adjusted profit of $58 million in the second quarter of this year. The company also announced that it has appointed former McAfee president John Giamatteo as president of its cybersecurity business effective October the 4th. Shares of Nike dropped 6.1% after it became the latest company to warn investors about supply chain problems hurting revenue. It says the pandemic impacted production and delivery of its products around the world through this year's Christmas season and into next spring. Company officials say consumer demand has never been higher, but the supply issues have forced it to cut its full-year sales forecast. A wide range of industries face supply chain issues, and that has investors worried about rising costs for both businesses and consumers. A shortage of truck drivers in Great Britain has the government scrambling to lure more people into what has long been an underpaid and underappreciated job. The shortage is adding to the scarcity of everything from McDonald's milkshakes to supermarket produce. Now energy firms are rationing supplies of gasoline and closing some gas station pumps. The driver drought means wages are rising and people laid off from other sectors are starting to retrain as truckers. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 59 points in the day to 20,403. The Dow was up 33 points to 34,798. The S&P 500 was up 6 points to 4455, and the Nasdaq was down 4 points to 15,048. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 68 cents to 73.98 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 16 cents to 5.14 US. Gold was up 7.66 to 17.50.42 US an ounce, and silver was down 9 cents to 22.42 US an ounce. Wheat is at $11.29 per bushel, barley's at $9.03 per bushel, canola's at $20.07, and corn is at $10.92 per bushel. Live cattle were down 30 cents to $122.93, feeder cattle were up 50 cents to $157.35, and lean hogs were up $2.53 to $87.28. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.04 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Alberta Health Services says it is pausing mental illness and addiction program referrals across the province. It says it needs to reassign staff to help deal with the strain on our healthcare system caused by COVID-19. AHS says some patients will be transferred to non-acute spaces. Well, Mom used to tell me, son, you only have one set of eyes, so you better take good care of them. Well, coming up, we chat with an optometrist who has some tips for us to help improve our eye health. Stay with us.
Well, we all probably take our eyesight for granted at times, and today we want to talk about properly caring for our eyes and how to deal with vision problems should they come up. Dr. Mansoor Chowdhury is an optometrist with Visual Effects Eye Clinic here in Lethbridge. He joins me now. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chowdhury. So great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's start with the basics. How often should we be going for an eye exam?
So in our clinic, we generally recommend everyone to come at least every year or two. For kids 18 or under, we recommend every year. Seniors 65 and over every year for sure. And if you're a diabetic, you're actually covered for an eye exam yearly as well. And that's something that I think a lot of people still aren't really aware of. So just important to get everything checked out if you're a diabetic for sure.
Okay, definitely. Now, you also mentioned kids should go every year. At what age should children start going for their first eye checkup?
As early as 6 months is okay. You can bring them in earlier if you want to, if there's any concerns that the parents have, like if you notice an eye being turned in or out are usually common ones, or any concerns at all that might come up, we generally just say, hey, it's better just to bring them in. But we've seen patients as young as 2 months, 1 month, so there's really no age limit there.
Yeah, how do you do an eye exam on such a young little baby?
Well, we hope that they're not too scared, but babies actually aren't as tough, especially if they're sleeping. A lot of people think that the babies need to be awake, but it's almost easier when they're tired because then we can just hold their eyes open and, you know, basically get a good look at what's important. Do they have cataracts? Do they have anything going on? But it's usually pretty quick, right? So.
Wow. Now, is it just me, or does it seem like more and more kids are needing glasses these days at an earlier age? Has this increased?
We've noticed some trends of that too. I mean, I think part of it comes from, you know, glasses are cool now, so a lot of kids want them. But I think just with everything being close up and in our face, you know, a lot of near work can lead to you being nearsighted. So overall, though, over the last several years, it's been pretty consistent. But I've heard that too, that, you know, we seem to notice more kids requiring glasses or becoming more nearsighted. And I think
I was wondering if it's from more, I was wondering if it was from more and more screen time. We have screens in our face constantly now, so that might be having an adverse effect on our eyes. What's your opinion on that?
It definitely can be, not just from the standpoint of needing glasses, but when you're staring at something up close, you tend to blink less. We're finding blue light isn't that great for our eyes either. And just for kids' sleep cycles too, right? So if they're doing it at night or at odd times throughout the day, it can kind of throw them off their routines.
That's a very good point. Now, other than that, do we know what else might cause eyesight to decrease? I assume age is a factor, but is there anything young people can do to prevent their eyesight from becoming impaired?
Well, overall, the best advice I give all my patients is just trying to be as healthy as we can overall. You know, the more you take care of your body, your eyes tend to follow suit because, well, they're connected too. But an interesting fact for children or kids is getting enough sun exposure. You know, there's been some research into kids that didn't have as much sun exposure were more likely to become nearsighted. And, you know, that's another great way to kind of gently nudge them off their iPads and the close-up stuff, right? So playing outside is, you know, more important than we think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Put down the iPad and go play outside. Go pick up a basketball. It's good for your eyes. That's a good argument that parents can have now. So when we start to have trouble reading the small print, should we be getting bifocals? I know some of us just go get those reading glasses from the drugstore, myself included. Are those okay, or should we be actually getting bifocals?
Well, it really just depends on what's going to work best for you. So with over-the-counter reading glasses, for example, they can work really well for some patients. If you don't mind taking them on and off all the time, because once you have them on, you might be able to see up close, but anything past about an arm's length is going to be pretty blurry. Also, a lot of people, their prescription's different in each eye. So figuring out what prescription might work best for you it'd probably be a good idea to get your eyes checked first. And we could recommend if you need just reading glasses, or if a multifocal lens might be an option for you too. It just depends on what's going to work best for your lifestyle, right? So several factors go into that too.
Yeah.
But
now, do you have any advice for those who wear contact lenses? Sometimes I know infections can happen or we get really dry eyes.
yeah, the biggest piece of advice I just laugh because I know all our colleagues we have our issues with it, but just following the manufacturer guidelines. So if you have a contact lens you're only supposed to wear for 2 weeks, don't wear it for 2 or 3 months. Don't sleep in your contacts if you're not supposed to. Try to give your eyes a break too. Generally have at least 1 or 2 days per week where you're just in your glasses. And I usually tell my patients not to wear their contacts for any more than 10 to 12 hours a day, just because it is so dry here. And it just helps keep the eyes healthy and reduce the wear and tear.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, I understand that there is a relatively new development for contact lenses that can actually help stop the progression of nearsightedness in children. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we've had these contacts they've been available for a few years now, but basically to explain how they work is when you're nearsighted, generally your eye is a little bit longer than average. So the light's not hitting the back where you want it to, it falls short. So the idea behind these contact lenses is that it forces the light to fall just a little, almost right at the back of the eye, but it splits it up a bit to go a little bit further ahead. And what this does, long story short, is it helps prevent the growth of the eyeball itself overall, and it can slow down the progression quite a bit.
Wow, that is fascinating. What modern science can do. Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It really is. So now, what about multifocal contact lenses? How effective are they compared to glasses with bifocals?
They can be pretty comparable. Again, it just depends on your prescription. If you have a really complicated prescription, it might be a little bit harder to get you fit into multifocal contacts. But that's just something that, sometimes it's trial and error. We try a lens on a patient, see if it works, have them come back in a few weeks, and we just make some tweaks and move on. And hopefully after a couple of visits, we find a lens that's comfortable for them. But I would say it's pretty successful for most patients nowadays.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, in addition to this, of course, there are some very serious eye issues. So cataracts being one of them. What is the cause of that, and at what age do they tend to start? I know you'd mentioned that in infancy, then even you're looking for cataracts. I had no idea an infant can have a cataract. So what's the cause of that?
So with cataracts, generally the number one reason people have cataracts is just due to aging. Everyone's going to get them eventually. It's nothing to be worried about. It doesn't hurt your eye or harm your eye. It just causes us to see blurry. Some patients might develop them younger. For instance, if there's children or infants, it could just be congenital, right? It's something you're born with. If you had an injury to the eye, sometimes that can induce an earlier cataract. Depending on what medications you're taking, that can sometimes induce cataracts as well. Basically, it's the lens in your eye. It's kind of like the windshield. When the proteins change over time, it just becomes less transparent. And that's when patients start to complain that things are getting a little foggy or their vision's just not as clear as it used to be. They also feel like their glasses are dirty or their vision's just kind of smudgy. And then they come in and, there's a cataract just sitting there. So.
Wow. Now, that can obviously be removed with surgery, and a lot of people are going for cataract surgery. So how much of a process is this, and how successful is it?
It's a fairly simple process. If you get your eyes checked, we notice a cataract, we just refer you to one of our great ophthalmologists in town, or if you want to go to Calgary Medicine Hat, wherever you need to be. And it's a pretty simple process. It's very effective. It's very safe. Cataract surgery has been around for a very long time, and the prognosis is usually very, very good. Patients are usually very happy, and it's not very painful. It's pretty easy to take care of yourself after, as long as you can use some eye drops, but it's a pretty easy process overall.
That's good to know. Now, what about glaucoma? This is another one that we hear about. So can you explain what this is and what the cause is?
So with glaucoma, we're not too sure exactly what causes it. It's basically a progressive degeneration of your optic nerve. And the biggest risk factor we find that most people can relate to is high eye pressures. You know, once upon a time, high eye pressures meant you had glaucoma, whereas now, of course, we understand there's several factors that can cue us into diagnosing that or not. But the simplest explanation is just your optic nerve that progressively degenerates over time. And the cause, sometimes it can be induced. If you had an injury that increases your pressure, or other physical factors of your anatomy that might make you more prone to it. But overall, it can be linked to family history as well.
So what kinds of treatments then are available for glaucoma?
Most of the treatments are geared towards lowering the intraocular eye pressure. So commonly first line is either eye drops, of different prescription eye drops we can use. And what's becoming more popular also in first line treatment is minor surgeries that can help alleviate the pressure too. So some of our patients that just don't like using eye drops or can't get behind that idea or won't be compliant with that, we sometimes think minor surgery might be a better option for them.
Okay. Now, you know, you hear a lot of people who are bothered by floaters in the eyes. So what is this? What causes it? Can it be serious?
So floaters can be serious if they're something new, if you're noticing more of them, or you're noticing flashes of light or anything odd in your vision. We generally ask patients to come in the same day. Even if you're unsure, it's better just to be on the safe side and get into a local optometrist to have them take a look at the back of the eye. What floaters are is the very back of our eye, there's a kind of a jelly-like substance called the vitreous, and pieces of that can break off or clump together and basically cast shadows in the back of the eye, which is what you see. So when you move your eyes left to right, it's kind of like shaking a snow globe, except instead of having multiple snowflakes, it's just one or two or little chunks. So, but generally they're not very harmful. But again, if they're new and you're noticing more of them or anything different, it's best just to have your eyes checked.
Yeah, that actually sounds way more serious now that you explained what it actually is. I've never had it explained like that. I had no idea. So thank you for the education there. Now, more and more people these days are going for laser eye surgery. So how successful is this? How long does it last? Are you basically cured forever? Do you have to go back again in the future?
That's a great question. I've actually had laser eye surgery myself. I used to be really nearsighted. And the different types you can get, there's certain ones that they'll actually warranty for a few years, but there's certain procedures that'll warranty forever too. So if it starts to change or if your prescription starts to regress, then they can do a minor touch up. But again, everyone's different, right? It's individual. Some people have had it for decades and haven't noticed a change. Some people had it for a few years and they noticed that it was starting to regress as well. But for the most part, if you have a really high prescription and you get laser surgery done, it probably won't ever go back to as bad as it originally was. Like you might need glasses again to see far away, but and they're always improving it too, right? So it's very individual, but for the most part, it's quite successful.
Okay, so we sometimes hear about these poor outcomes with laser eye surgery. So do you have any cautions for people considering having the surgery done?
Just follow your surgeon's guidelines. You know, they're going to give you a schedule of drops and changes in your routine to undergo, and just follow them strictly. So, I mean, they're your eyes. You just paid a bunch of money to get this surgery done. So I think it'd be kind of silly to not just listen to the experts into what's going to give you the best results. And if you notice anything that's concerning again, whether it's after day 1 to week 1 or 2, just either contact them or contact your local optometrist so they can make sure it's nothing too serious.
Great advice. Thanks so much for being with us today, Dr. Chaudhry. So glad to have you on today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Raising a family to follow a godly path in today's world can be challenging, to say the least. Statistics tell us that many young people fall away from the faith in their latter teenage years. Today's guest has some helpful advice on how to keep things headed the right way. Phil Bell joins us from the UK. He is a pastor, a columnist, and a blogger, and author of the Family Ministry Playbook. You sound like a really busy guy. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Jeanette. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, Phil, first of all, give us a little snapshot of what your book is about and who it's written for.
Well, it's a book that I wrote after spending 20 years in the trenches of ministry and watching families just struggle, and also, candidly, being a father myself and struggling through raising kids and trying to invest in them, and also having seen so many kids, as you rightly say, you know, walking away from the faith. I started to see a disconnect, and really this book is written initially for people who are in ministry. But it's really written for anybody that cares about reaching the next generation for Christ, anybody. And if you read Deuteronomy 6, verse 4, it says, "Hear, O Israel." And there's a message to pass on the faith to the next generation, but it's a message for everybody. So it's designed for ministry people, but it's also designed for anybody that's part of a church that wants to reach the next generation for Christ in some healthy and practical ways.
Mm-hmm. Now, Phil, many youths are suffering from depression, suicidal thoughts, broken families, and of course, bullying has been a huge issue lately too. So why is this generation struggling so much to cope?
Yeah, it's a great question. I just read, just this week, a Wall Street Journal article about the impact of the digital world that kids live in, and that we're drowning in dopamine, I think was the headline. I think there's two things that come into play very much for this generation. First of all, we are saturated with so much information, and our brains are switched on all the time. That's not just for kids, that's us as parents, that's us as families. So we have no time and no room to breathe, and we're always so busy and engaged either in technology or extracurricular everything. As families, we're not designed to run that fast for that long. And so I think a lot of the things that we see with depression in this generation are connected to the busyness and the frenetic paces that we're keeping as families. But I also think it is the fact we're allowing our kids to be so engaged 24/7 with technology, and there is a lot out there that talks about the impact of technology. So I think that's the thing. And then obviously we've got this culture that allows kids to say, you can be anything and anyone you want, and there's no repercussions. I believe in a gospel that loves us tremendously, but there is a balance of grace and truth. And what we need for our kids is not only to help them to slow down in their lives, not only for us to slow down and for our kids to slow down, but we also need to teach them what it means to live in God's grace and God's truth. And when we find a good balance of that grace and truth, I think that's helpful for our kids. I think we actually live in a world of so much grace, and that sounds a bit weird to say that, but we're saying to kids, hey, you can be anything and anyone you want, there's no repercussions, but God loves us so much. He wants us also to understand the truth. And when we believe and understand and live out his truth, there's tremendous freedom that comes with that. And I think there's a good balance of that our kids need these days.
Now, Phil, you write that you find most parents aren't sure where to even begin when it comes to raising their kids with a solid faith foundation. Do you find that troubling?
I do, and I think we've spent so many years, the church has done a tremendous job in so many ways. I was a youth pastor for 12 plus years, and I invested in kids. I think the challenge is, as families got busier, we kind of had this mentality of leave it to the experts, drop them off at church with the youth pastors like people like me, and the kids are going to be okay. I think what's happened is as families have got busier and they've left it to the church in some ways. And I'll be honest, I'm one of those busy parents too. I'm hoping someone else is going to help my kids. I think what happens is that hour per week that maybe our kids are getting, and sometimes for most families, it's not even an hour per week. They come to church maybe twice a month. An hour per week isn't going to help our kids really have a solid faith. So what it requires is to slow everything down, to create margin in our schedules, and start with the basics. In Deuteronomy 6 again, it's all about the laying down and the getting up. It's the comings and goings. It's the teachable moments and bringing faith into the everyday. I would say to parents who are watching this now is, it's not rocket science. You don't have to be a theologian. You don't have to have a PhD in the Bible. You just have to slow down, find time with your kids, do things that they like, and have opportunities to talk about what's going on in their lives, if you create that margin, and then it's bringing faith into the everyday. And it's also, and this is so important, looking at your kids and saying, that is a huge question you've got right now. Honestly, right now as I stand here, I don't know what the answer is. And believe me, I get plenty of those moments as a parent, even as a pastor. So what I say to my kids is say, hey, let's just take some time to look at that together. Let's go figure that out together. Let's go on that journey together. But again, I just want to impress upon the people watching today is it requires us all to slow down so that we have the opportunities to play and have fun with our kids, have those conversations with those kids, and allow those questions to bubble up. When we're so busy and so engaged in technology and we've got extracurricular everything, we're not going to have those opportunities. So slow down, have those teachable moments, and be prepared to say to kids, I don't know the answers, but go on that journey with them. And it's okay, you'll find the answers. There are plenty of resources out there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, of course, how busy life is and how crazy, busy parents are. And your book encourages churches to actually partner with parents in the moral development of kids. So how does this happen, practically speaking?
That's a great question. So I think first things first is, I think as the church, anybody who's watching this today, if you're part of, working with kids or students, the first thing we need to do is we need to listen to the parents and we need to ask them an important question, which is, we're here to partner with you. What do you need help with? What are the issues that you're facing? And I think when we ask those questions, we get the important answers. And then from those answers, we look for ways in which we can resource parents and ways in which we can equip parents. So what I mean by that is, let's say that a parent comes up and says, I don't even know how to navigate through technology. I don't even know where to begin, and my kids are making mistakes and stuff is going on. If that's something that they need help with, let's go find resources. Let's find articles. Let's find a way to have a technology contract with your kid. Anything you can find that's going to be, but you can put in the hands of the parents that's practical, that's going to help them. And then I think second of all, from there, it's then we say, okay, now that you've got these practical tools in your hands, let us tell you about some other things that you can do in your family life that's going to help you teach your kids even more than that. But again, it's meeting parents where they are, meeting them in their need, and then taking from there and equipping them with the Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9 framework, which is to impress it upon our hearts. As parents, we need to grow in our faith. It's also impressing upon our children's hearts. It's in the teachable moments. And it's having some intentional times that we make way for faith conversations to happen. So I would say let's meet parents practically where they are, resource them, and then we can start to talk about how to equip them.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. Now, Phil, how bad is it? How many kids are walking away from their faith today, and what can be done about it?
That's a great question. So I've seen studies everywhere from 50% to 80% of kids are walking away from their faith. Now, when we see those studies, they are scary. But what I've also seen in the 20 years of ministry is that a lot of these kids will walk away from the faith. And a lot of parents who are watching this now, you might be in that situation and you might be devastated by that. I say, don't give up hope. Keep praying for them. Keep talking to them. Keep having moments where you can bring faith into those conversations. But know that I have seen, and people like me have seen, that sometimes it's like a boomerang. When they eventually get married and have kids, they suddenly start to realize that life is not as easy as they thought it was. And a lot of the time, where do they come back to? They come back to the church. They come back to their faith. And it's in those moments that they will come back. So whether it's 50% or 80%, know that what the investment that you make as parents today is going to have an impact on them. And even if they might seem to walk away, have hope, keep praying, keep having conversations. There will be a moment where they will want to come back because they've got so many big questions about life.
I love that. Now, in your experience, what do kids most want from their parents and why?
$1 million question, right?
Yeah.
We could spend another hour answering this. But I can say this personally, I think simply put is that they want to know that they are loved, that they are cared for. And I think every parent watching this today would say, well, I'm pretty sure my kids know that they're loved and that they're cared for. The problem is you know, it's the age-old truth of, you know, how do you spell love? It's Time. And I think that the way that we really do display that love is to really slow down ourselves and make way for our kids. And so what do they really need? They need our time. They need us to show up in the margins of life. They need us to create margins for the margins of life, if you will. And so I think that's the greatest thing. I think if there's one thing that's devastating families in our world today, it's just the frenetic pace. We're on a family sabbatical right now. We recognize that we were running too fast and too furious for too long. We've got some healing to do as a family. I'm walking the walk right now. We slowed everything down. We made some big changes. We make some big sacrifices to slow down so that we can spend more time together as a family. And guess what? What happens is a lot of the issues that we didn't see that were there are now starting to bubble up. And we could think, oh my goodness, what have we done? But it's actually a good thing, because now we can see some issues, we can lean into them, and with God's love and God's grace, he can bring healing to our family. So if there's a family watching this today, if there's a parent watching this, think about how you can slow down and create margin for your kids, because that's what they truly need, and they need to be heard. It's such a busy world. Everybody's trying to speak. Your kids just need to be heard, and they need to be loved with time.
Yeah. Now, are there some things that are common denominators, that maybe things that both the kids and the parents want?
That's a great question. I don't know about want, but I would answer with this. I would say what they need is, all of us need to learn, and for many of us, it's something that maybe we've never learned before. It's about what it means to get away each day or in moments and be quiet. We hear God's word, we fill ourselves with God's word, that's great. But when are we listening to that still voice that's telling us, you're loved, you're forgiven, I have a plan and a purpose for you? We need that on a daily encounter in our busy lives. So what we need as parents, and what our kids need, is to learn the art of slowing down, being quiet, and allowing God to speak to us. And if you look at Jesus, you know, he went to those quiet, solitary places. There were so many things he could be doing. And in Mark chapter 1, I love that picture that's painted where the disciples catch up with him, and they almost berate him and say, where were you? And he almost doesn't acknowledge their need at the time. He says, let's go to the next towns and villages to preach the gospel here, because that's the reason why I've come. And for so many of us, there are too many opportunities in our lives these days. It's not about having enough opportunities. It's about taking the right opportunities. And as parents and as kids, we're trying to take every opportunity. The fear of missing out is absolutely killing us. We need to take the right opportunities in life, and we'll only ever know the right opportunities for our families if we just slow down, start to learn the art of listening to the Holy Spirit and what he has to say to each one of us personally.
Now, I know like the stats are huge. 35% of kids live in single parent family homes. So that means these parents are super overwhelmed, and you've obviously helped a lot of families. What are some lessons that you've learned from helping hurting parents?
That's a great question. And one of the things I see, we were in the Lake District here in the UK recently, and one of our friends, in fact, it was a foster sister of mine, came to visit with her daughter, and she's a single mum. And one of the things, you know, I know that she needs constantly, and the church needs to come around single parents with, is the encouragement that you're doing a great job, that you've got a hard job, and we see you, we know it's difficult. So we need to acknowledge that first, and we need to let them know that we're here for them. We need to show up in practical ways. But I think if you're a single parent watching this tonight, you know, the job that you're doing is absolutely amazing. You've got it tougher than anyone else. But here's the thing is God can work in and through you in mighty ways. But here's what I would say to you is I know that you feel alone, but get involved in a church. Get involved in a place where your kids can be involved in great youth ministries and children's ministries. But get in a place where you can be ministered to as a single parent. The biggest thing, you know, in Deuteronomy 6, again, you know, impress these things upon your heart. If you're a single parent, the best thing you can do is to invest in your faith journey. And that will have implications for how your kids see you and how you can show up in their lives. So you've got a tough job, single parents. You're doing everything for your kids all the time. Find a church that's going to minister to you, and do not feel guilty that you're going there to get ministered to. It's okay. That's what the church is for. That's who we are. We're your family. If you've got gaps in your family, let us come alongside you and fill those gaps. And don't feel guilty for it at all. Show up and be ministered to. That's the best bit of advice I could give a single parent. Show up to be invested in and grow in your faith journey. It will make the difference for your kids.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. Phil, it looks like we're out of time, but it's been so great to have you on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Jeanette.
Phil Bell is the author of the Family Ministry Playbook. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.